Hello everyone, it's great to be back with another episode of Vintage Club Conversations. This week, our featured guest is Paul Foreman, fractional CRO and leadership coach to many CROs and CEOs. Welcome to Vintage Club Conversations, Paul.
Thanks, Manisha. Pleasure to be here.
Paul Foreman is a trusted leadership coach who helps C-suite leaders find clarity, balance, and better decision-making in both life and business. With over 30 years of experience in the tech industry, Paul brings a unique blend of executive insight and grounded perspective to the table. From leading teams at Xerox and Dell Technologies to advising everyone from Fortune 50 giants to scrappy startups and family-run businesses, Paul has seen what works and what definitely doesn't. His superpower? Helping leaders cut through the noise, focus on what truly matters, and build strategies that lead to meaningful, lasting success.
Well, to kick things off, Paul, you have spent years focusing on developing leaders, so you must have a really unique perspective on how the sales landscape has changed over the last few years and with AI coming in. From what you have seen so far, how is AI reshaping sales leadership? Are there any cautionary tales or success stories that stand out to you especially?
The short answer is yes. And it's interesting. With every wave of technology, it becomes an initial exuberance about taking it on, and then the reality sets in. What's really important for folks to know is that they have to focus on what is working for their customer. And so AI needs to be an enabler of process, not the definer of process. The mistakes I've seen made is people just jumping in with AI, automating process, and forgetting that at the end of the day, the customer relationship is at risk because of that. So as long as leaders are looking at it as a supplement to begin with, then I think success is there for them. They also need to understand the difference between just automating processes and the true ability of AI to add value to those processes. So it's bots versus agents, if you like, is where we're at right now. So just making a system faster, better, cheaper is not necessarily a good thing if the system is wrong to begin with. And so it gives people the opportunity to stare deeply at their internal process, make sure that they're automating the right things. And let me give you an example, because AI is not necessarily a new concept. Some years ago, when I ran the executive briefing center for a large technology company, we had a visit from the CIO of a large transport company who was looking at AI. And she said, hey, AI is going to be great, because not only does it give you the ability to shoot yourself in the foot, but it adjusts for wind direction so that you can do it accurately. And so the point is, be very careful what you're applying it to and make sure it's going to add value to your process, not just replace process.
Right. But don't you think it has actually changed a lot? I mean, earlier, yes, AI was there, but a lot of times it was a buzzword, right? And now, when we see the advancements in AI, it is crazy, right? Every day you see new advancements and it is mind blowing.
Yeah, it is.
So, do you think, I mean, what happened before ChatGPT versus post ChatGPT era, the entire sales cycle is changing with AI?
Depends on the product that you have, right? It should be adding value to give you context for your calls. It should be adding value, automating repetitive processes. But here's the deal. AI to work efficiently has to learn and continuously improve. And so if your data at the source is not good, then you're just learning bad stuff and repeating it. And so the shock to the system for a lot of companies is that the quality of the data in their own internal systems, in their CRMs, is not good enough for AI to add value to their process. And so there's this gut-wrenching feel that says, hey, great, we've got this shiny new thing that we're going to apply and it's going to make us more effective rather than just more efficient. And then the reality sets in that they've got a lot of basic work to do to get the data right to begin with.
I think, yeah, AI is here, the preparedness of data is here, but the expectations are on top of that.
That's right. And, one of the things they apply to is, hey, we're going to use AI. AI is now going to populate the CRM from our call data. which is great because salespeople hate populating the CRM, right? It's just a task that they don't enjoy doing it because there's generally been no Pavlovian reward for filling out your CRM stuff. The problem with that, though, is that if AI does it for you, you don't learn from it. It just becomes a data repository. Whereas the reality is if you write something, you're more likely to learn it and question it yourself. If the machine is doing it for you, I don't think it's adding value unless there's a discipline to say, hey, what are the insights that I should be deriving from that call? What are the emotions? What are the words? What did my prospect tell me in that call that I may have missed because I was too focused on my script?
Yeah, totally. We have been talking to a lot of CROs, and I think the sentiments are pretty similar. Everyone seemed pretty positive about AI. But I think what you mentioned is really what happens behind the scenes, and it's very important to consider those as common challenges when you're actually, implementing or deploying AI.
The other
Um,
challenge, and you alluded to it, is just the pace of change. So this is a horse you have to be riding, but you have to be really clear about what the outcomes that you're seeking are, when they can be achieved, and avoid the disruption that is possible when implementing, AI across your stack.
yeah. Generally in other CROs, do you see they are either hesitant to embrace AI, or mostly in your network you have seen most of them are enthusiastic about it?
I see a wide range. I think that the larger the organization, the more equipped they are to invest in it. But the CRO shouldn't necessarily be the technologist. The CRO should be going to their IT function or whoever it is and say, hey, this is these are the processes that I believe I can improve. These are the critical processes that are involved in my go-to-market strategy. Starting with the customer and moving backwards, these are the pieces that I believe that we can make more efficient and more effective. Please help me with that. But don't make me go in a completely different direction because I'm going to disrupt my salespeople and therefore I'm going to disrupt my customer and the relationships I have with them by doing change for change's sake, right?
Right. And in your opinion today, what are those, let's say if you have to talk about the entire sales cycle, starting with customer and going backwards, what are a couple of things where you think AI is super efficient today? And what do you see in future will happen? Like what are the stages where AI can actually be very efficient, probably, 1, 2 years down the line?
Yeah, I'm excited by the ability for AI to do coaching, to coach salespeople on calls because it can listen faster, right? And it can learn as the call volume builds up that it can learn from. It can pick on pieces of the conversation and make sure that the sales folks are adhering to whatever sales methodology they've chosen, whether it be a challenger sale or spin or whatever it might be. I think there's some exciting opportunity there. What it can't help with is the emotional intelligence that is required in sales, where the human to human reaction is still going to be super critical depending on your product, right? It can help you provide great opening statements for calls to deliver that empathy because of the research it can do. So if salespeople today aren't pre-preparing their calls with statements about the company or the individual that they're meeting to break the ice and to show that they care, if you like, then they're missing a beat, a big one. And traditionally, that's really where sales has fallen down. The cold call, we haven't really evolved the cold call that well in sales. AI gives us the ability to do that. It can hopefully get rid of the I just wanted to reach out statement forever because
Yeah.
it's just a horrible,
Totally.
right?
Totally. I think LinkedIn started, the popular LinkedIn statement when they started, like this, sending connection requests to people was, I just came across your profile on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
yeah. No, you didn't. No, you
That
didn't.
one.
Your tech stack fed it to me, and what you wanted to do is irrelevant to me as a buyer. So how should we how should we progress the conversation? No,
Yeah.
clearly AI allows you to be, as long as your prompts are smart, to be smartly prepared. And in my view, Hopefully that can lead to quality calls, not quantity of calls. Because as a sales leader, I've always preferred my people to make really good quality calls rather than just dialing for dollars. Again, it's product specific, but that's never really worked for me. And as I look at some of the experiences in some of the companies that I work with, I see a lot of the leadership saying, hey, if only we could make another 20 calls a day, we would get this result. And the sales, the SDR, the BDR at the bottom of the chain is thinking, really? I don't get time to prepare my call, which is why I come across as cold, and which is why sales turnover is so horribly high, not only for the SDR folks, but AEs now and sales leadership turnover is a really frightening place too.
Yeah, totally. No, since you mentioned coaching, you are mentoring a lot of companies, right? And we are seeing a lot of AI native companies popping up these days. Are you mentoring any AI native companies, and how does your approach to mentoring differ when you're working with someone who has just started maybe 2 years back, which is a post ChatGPT era company, versus a traditional SaaS company?
It actually doesn't change that much, Manisha, because what I coach is the gap between the customer and the sales organization. How you bridge that gap and that journey towards the customer's world, you can either do through technology or through human beings or through a hybrid combination of both, which is my preference. And so the outcome is what I'm trying to coach and improve the process within the companies that I speak with too. And so it doesn't really matter if they built their tech stack using AI. If they have, great, right? But is the tech stack right? Is it supporting that customer journey and the translation of that customer's journey to the salesperson's conversation? Because the two people have to speak the same language. Salespeople have to understand the lexicon of the customer critically, and they have to speak in that lexicon. Otherwise, their conversation is doomed at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And they speak in jargon, they speak in acronyms that mean nothing to the customer, and yet that's the way they've been taught. And in early stage companies, quite often the leadership are really guilty of that. They can speak in 3-letter acronyms that they get really excited about. And the SaaS industry became consumed with acronyms, let's face it, over the years. The various R's and, TCs. And it's like, okay, that's not new. That's just new acronyms for it. The reality is, what does your customer want? What is the pain that you're solving? And how are you delivering your product to them? And you're doing it in a timely way, it's a price right, et cetera, et cetera. And more importantly, what is the link between the customer and your company? I don't care if it's AI. I don't care if it's a website. I don't care if it's a human being on the phone. I don't care if it's a meeting-based organization. But it's that link, the intersection there is what I coach for people to get better at, because that's when it falls apart.
Interesting. But would you say there is some role AI can play in this, depending on, as you mentioned, product, but also if you're selling to a, let's say, an SMB or an enterprise company, right?
Well, here's the thing. Most customers today, and it's been a trend for a long time, are much better prepared as buyers than they ever have been. Here's an interesting conundrum for the AI world to look at. For years, we've been talking about, and you get bombarded with attempts to assist you on your SEO, the search engine optimization. For your company needs to be found here, it needs to be ranked here, blah, 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 blah. That was true when human beings were going out onto the web and searching for the terms. Now they're going to their whatever chat engine they use and say, hey, make me a comparison between Salesforce and HubSpot in a paper no more than 1,000 words long. And so it's AI talking to AI, delivering a paper to the human. And so that language has to change as well over time.
Yeah.
That's just another challenge in this incredibly fast-paced evolution that we're going through. And you have a choice. You can either go completely loopy, trying to get hold of it all, or you can be really disciplined and say, wait, this is the process that I can improve. If I do improve this, am I going to break something else? If not, yes, no, right? There's a yes, no flow here. And then you've got to look at, hey, is this efficiency or effectiveness? And my very old example of that is if your bathtub's overflowing, the efficient thing is to buy a bigger squeegee. The effective thing is to turn off the faucet. And so if you think about effectiveness above efficiency, that is where AI and the thinking behind AI can really add value to your whole flow. But don't make silos of efficiency that can't speak to each other at the end of the day. Because that's the other thing that we're facing is because it's reliant on data to learn and to deliver insights, we're going to hit regulatory and compliance issues before too long. Politicians, slow as they are in realizing that this thing is upon them, are going to get to it some stage. And I know that general counsels are already concerned about this, wild west of data flowing around, because they're the ones that are going to have to defend their companies in court when the wrong person presses the wrong button and releases all sorts of data that shouldn't be out of their domain.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to think about for sure. Currently, everyone is just, probably they're in the FOMO mode, or
Yeah,
they have pressure from the board. But yeah, a lot of things definitely
pressure
to
from the
think.
board, pressure from shareholders, pressure from investors saying, what is your AI strategy? Where are you? And
Yeah.
some panic statements are made. Well, the reality is, hey, we will use it where it adds value to our stakeholders and shareholders.
So, Paul, you have been a strong advocate for fractional sales leadership overall, right? I mean, can you share what makes this model so compelling for you? Also, what strategic advantages does it give companies, especially those in growth or transition phases,
Yeah.
that you think they might not get from traditional full-time sales leader?
Yeah. And again, I think it comes down to timing, Manisha. Two examples I'll give you. One is the transition time between founder-led sales. Early stage companies, the product's proven, the customers voted with their checkbook. It's time to go. But now it's time for the company to move on from the CEO's Rolodex, to use an old-fashioned term. And they get some money, they get some investment, and everyone's really excited. And they say, okay, let's get ahead of sales, and let's find a rock star, and let's really go. There's a problem right there. What they really need in that situation is an aggressive hunter salesperson to go and just knock on doors, crush the pavement, just build on the momentum. It is rare to find someone that can do that and write the playbook at the same time. So my proposition there is, hey, go get the hunter and control them with experience that you can access on a fractional basis, creating the playbook, creating the rules, usually with a more objective viewpoint and from someone who's been there, done it, got the t-shirt, right? Who doesn't want to go and knock on doors anymore, but really enjoys the creation of the strategy, the playbook, et cetera, et cetera. And you can access both of those people for the price of one, super critically, because the hunter is going to be incented by the variable earnings that they can make, because that's in their DNA, right? And you don't stop them. The fractional is there because they still want to do it. They're still excited doing it. They just don't need or want to do it on a full-time basis. And in the early stages, candidly, you don't need a full-time head of sales. You need a full-time salesperson, right? So have the fractional come in, ingest the knowledge from the founder group, start to translate that into a scalable, growable playbook and system, and then hopefully leave them when they finish the gig with their long-term head of sales. The issue that addresses is one of tenure in sales leadership today. 19 months average life expectancy for a sales leader. Now you think about that. It takes, let's say, 3 months to hire someone. So you're without that person then. The CEO has to look at however many 30, 60, 90-day plans from the candidate. And then they come on board. And let's be generous. They onboard to full productivity in 4 to 6 months. That means in 6 months' time, you've paid back maybe what it's cost you. And now you've got a runway to the future of productivity. Until, of course, either that individual hits a ceiling because of the scarcity of skills that exist in the marketplace, or they get pinged by someone else. Says, hey, I've got a shinier new thing for you to look at. And let's say that happens at 15 months. So the reality is I get 9 months of productivity out of that individual because their head switched off at 15. When their head switches off, their salespeople understand that and they sense it because they're humans. And that means their customers are sensing the same thing too. So you've got this horribly disruptive cycle going on because people have been brought in too early with too little skills and they're not being mentored and coached and managed properly because it's not easy to manage a head of sales. We are difficult people. That's why we've got to where we are.
Yeah.
And most CEOs don't understand that there's as much DNA in the head of sales as there is in their engineering group, whom they understand and can put the scrums together and deliver the product. But the DNA of a head of sales who can recruit, nurture, and mentor and coach their people to be excellent is a rare thing. So rather than find the unicorn, get a combination of things and evolve it over time, right? So there's that place where the model fits. The other one is in transition, right? When that person says, hey, I know I'm 15 months in and I'm out of here. And the CEO's like, I'm being CEO now. I cannot go back to being the chief sales officer and the chief engagement officer and the chief everything else officer. I'm playing whack-a-mole and juggling all these balls as CEO now. I need help. That's when a fractional can come in and steady the ship and really do a revenue engine check, if you like, in the same way as you take your car to a good mechanic because your check engine light's going on. A good fractional head of sales can come in and check those lights and tell the CEO what they mean. Is it people? Is it process? Is it your tech stack? Is your customers moved on? Whatever it is, in a very quick way, without having to waste time and be the traditional consultant who's designed to make you spend money every month. The fractional will come and say, hey, here's your problem. Here's a route to fixing it. Let's do it.
And you would have seen so many different scenarios working with different companies that, all those learnings combined can actually be gold mine from day one instead of
Yeah,
going through the learning curve again.
yeah. It's without sounding arrogant. This is not what I think. It's what I know, right? And so, because I have seen, with executive operational careers and then advisory careers, I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two, to steal a phrase. So it's your speed to productivity is accentuated.
Interesting. Well, I think our listeners are going to have many takeaways from this conversations. Tons of amazing insights, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul, for being here and talking to us. But before we go away, we are going to set aside work for a moment and get to know more as a person. More about you as a person. The questions will be quick. Are you ready?
Sure, let's go for it.
Great. You have had a long career in tech and leadership. But if you weren't doing any of this, what do you think you would be doing instead?
Wow. I always wanted time to be a musician. I never had the time. Probably haven't got the ability, to be clear, but I would have loved to have learned to play some instrument,
Interesting.
and probably
Any
been in.
particular instrument?
I would have to. I wanted to be in a rock and roll band.
Interesting. Okay. What's a movie, what's a book, movie, or TV show that's unexpectedly shaped how you think or live?
Ooh, these are excellent questions. So, if anyone's ever told me that I was not capable of doing something or achieving something, that has been the challenge to me. And so usually it's people saying, hey, I don't think you're made for this. You're not up to it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
Challenge accepted.
we'll go for this. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think part of that is the imposter syndrome that quite a lot of us have. I don't think I can do it, but if you tell me I can't, I'm going to.
Interesting. I think all of us have that. Okay. And experience you have had that few others would have had in life. I'll just give you a couple of examples.
I'll give you three.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll give you three. I punched the governor of Texas.
Wow.
I'll explain all of these afterwards. I tried to refuse entry for Bianca Jagger backstage at a Rolling Stones concert. And Sheryl Crow said I looked like Eric Clapton when she was sitting on Lance Armstrong's lap.
I think
So
we
to
will
be
need.
clear, I punched the governor of Texas during the swim section of a triathlon. I just
Okay.
happened to. I was working security backstage at a Rolling Stones concert in London back in the day, and I didn't recognize this entourage that came in with Bianca. And then Lance Armstrong was actually a customer of a company that I founded, and we happened to be visiting him when he was in a relationship with Sheryl Crow. But yeah, I enjoy those stories.
Great. Last one. Anything you're personally excited about or worried about for rest of the 2025?
I think like most people in business, I would like some clarity about direction of the economy. I think whether it's been called a recession or not, I know that my clients, and I've seen spending being challenged over the last 9 months because there was an expectation that things would change, that maybe interest rates would drop, et cetera, et cetera. There would be some sort of clarity of direction because that's what people want to make a decision. And so uncertainty is stopping people from doing what they want to do and preventing them to do what they can do. So some sort of definitive direction would be really useful for everyone.
Yeah. I was just discussing this, my husband and I were discussing this last night, like exact same thing, there needs to be some certainty in the market overall, globally, because that's when, people spend, people make big choices, and that's how the economy gets rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think people have gone to their credit card on the assumption that it was going to be cheaper money in time, and that's proving wrong. And I think we're about to, if we aren't feeling the effects already, we're about to, especially in terms of the consumer. We shall see. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. Let's hope. I think there's nothing without hope.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. It was a great conversation talking about AI, how to, be a great fractional head of sales or CRO during transitioning phase or early phase for founders. Any last words of, advice you would like to share with our viewers?
I think it's just, make sure you know why you're jumping on the wagon. Don't just do it for the sake of it. Because if it's not adding value, there's no point in doing it. Don't jump on it because you believe you have to. Don't succumb to the pressure of what's your AI strategy if you don't need one. You will, but take it in short steps.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Thanks again, Paul.
Manisha, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.